Hello and welcome back to the Millennial Bard. This summer blockbuster season was perhaps the best one I've had in years. Then came War 2 and things kind of took an ugly turn. That rant I did in my last video was really cathartic. And so I decided to sneak back into the theater for my next adventure. Honestly, there aren't really any big names in the theater right now. There was Demon Slayer, but anime clearly isn't my thing. Then there was the latest Conjuring, which I'd rather watch at home for safety reasons. F1, Superman, Fantastic Four, all of which I've already watched more than once. Then a few regional Indian films, and then there was The Long Walk. And the choice was kind of obvious. Celebrated movie pundit John Campea and writer, producer, director Robert Meyer Burnett really did a great job of selling me this movie. They spoke extremely highly about this movie and the book it's based on. And just in case you're curious, I've popped their channel link in the description below. So go check them out and share some love. And long story short, they were spot on. And this movie floored me. The thrills, the heartfelt moments, the simple yet gripping premise, and the overall execution. This was clearly one of the best cinematic experiences I've had this year. And some experts have even gone on to say that this is perhaps the best film adaptation on a book from this writer. And after watching, I can clearly see why. So let's dive deeper into The Long Walk. The Long Walk is based on a novella by Stephen King, the man behind Shawshank Redemption, It, The Boogeyman, The Shining, The Green Mile, and countless others. The film's directed by Francis Lawrence, who you may know from the Hunger Games series, Red Sparrow, and one of my all-time favorite comic book movies, Constantine. So when I heard about Stephen King and Francis Lawrence working on a movie together, I knew that I was in for something special. The film takes place in a dystopian America, a nation that lost the war and is being currently run by a totalitarian regime. Free thought, free speech, arts of any kind are all strictly prohibited. The economy is in shambles and people can barely manage to put food on the table. And in this America, every year, the government organizes a sporting event called the Long Walk. 100 youngsters, two from each state, picked through a lottery. Now the rules here are brutally simple. Walk indefinitely until there's only one person left. Drop below 3 miles per hour for more than 30 seconds, you die. You stop, you die. Step off the pavement, you die. Try to hitch a ride, and you die. The punishment is swift and brutal. Just a bullet to the head. The only upside though is if you win, you get riches and you get one wish. Anything that your heart desires. Now, the premise sounds straightforward, but from this simplicity emerges something truly fascinating, deeply human, and very nuanced and layered. Now, let me throw you a question. If you were thrown into this world and you could win the long walk, what would you wish for? Now let's deep dive into why this movie actually works and what makes it really special. Right off the bat, the brilliance lies in how this simple setup blossoms. Each of the 100 boys has his reason for walking. Some out of fear, some out of poverty and desperation, others out of vengeance, rage, or the sheer thrill and experience of the long walk. And when you hear their reasons, you don't just understand them, you actually empathize with them. Now, what struck me most was how alive these characters felt. Except for the lead, backstories only unfold through conversations on the road. These boys talk, bond, scheme, strategize, and in an odd case, even push each other to death. But for the most part, they earnestly share what keeps them going. And in doing so, actually share a bit of themselves. And within 10 minutes of the walk starting, you've already established a connection with every single participant in that race. You might love one, hate another, and find this other one absolutely irritating. But every character is intentional, and every interaction leaves a mark. Now, the next thing that made the long walk so special were the visuals. I mean, the photography was just magnificent. Wide shots of the American countryside with vast farmlands, bridges, hills, and rivers, always broken by that endless stretch of tarmac, where you see these boys dragging their bodies forward. And the color grading is just striking. The life of the land in stark contrast to these graying walkers on the dead tarmac. And in a lot of ways, it actually reminded me of John Hurt's 1984. And that resemblance only added more weight to the visual storytelling. Even the moments of gore were executed with precision. They were visceral, but the filmmakers were very sensible to balance it out with the emotional tones. Adapting a short story or a novella into a feature film is a big challenge. Add too much and the film feels unfairly bloated. Add too little and it just lacks the weight. For the longest time, Lutera was my benchmark for getting this balance right. But The Long Walk might have just surpassed it. Instead of creating these unnecessary subplots, the film leaned into small human details. Untied shoelaces, cramps, basic bodily needs, the sheer exhaustion of never sleeping. You see boys catching micro naps while still walking. You see them straining harder on inclines just to keep pace, and even pulling each other up along the way, even though they all know that only one will survive. And in these tiny moments, this movie gave me a relentless and deeply immersive experience. And then there are the dialogues, the very soul of this film. You listen to the conversations about strategies, struggles, traumas, hopes, and dreams. Nothing wasted. And every exchange adds weight, it adds depth, or it delivers an understanding of these characters and the situation. And all of this reminded me of Before Sunrise, another movie that I absolutely love, with no flashbacks, no time jumps, just people talking and revealing themselves with every gesture and every word. And if you're someone who aspires to be a writer, aspires to write some banger scripts, I'd say this is a gold mine. Okay, so I've spoken about the specific things that made this movie tick, but I really can't finish this video without talking about the deeper layer. And truth be told, this is such a deep movie, it is far more than just a sensory experience. The Long Walk is philosophical, it is even allegorical. Beneath its surface lies a reflection of the world we live in and the history we carry. The socio-political tones are razor sharp, from propaganda to forced enlistment and the false promise of glory, all masking the inhumane suffering of young men sent into wars. Just watching it made me think of World War I, World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War, and all the other geopolitical conflicts around the world where youth were just treated as disposable. The movie made me think of the bond that soldiers form, only to watch their friends fall and keep marching forward, because if they don't, they're next. That's what makes this film so special. Like some of the greatest films ever, there's so much hidden beneath its surface that it demands revisits. Every time you watch it, you discover a new angle, a new character dimension, a new dynamic in the story. It's a story of endurance. True, but it's also a story of the systems that push endurance to its cruelest limits. To be honest, this movie is not going to be making a lot of big bucks, but it still matters. It isn't loud, it's not spectacle driven, and it's not trying to compete with the big franchises like Superman, Fantastic Four, or Jurassic World. Instead, it's a tense, human, and deeply meditative experience. One that makes you feel, think, and reflect long after the credits roll and amidst all the noise of big franchises and sequels. This is the kind of cinema that reminds us why films exist in the first place. For me, The Long Walk isn't just a movie, it's an experience, one that lingers in your mind and grows deeper the more you think about it. If you're someone who's already watched this movie, I'd love to know your thoughts about the movie and what you took away from it. And if you haven't watched it and this interests you even in the slightest, I would strongly suggest you get your tickets and watch this before the next weekend, because it's gonna be gone. And you'd probably have to wait like a month or 45 days until it drops on Netflix or Prime. Now, please be a good bunch and like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this deep dive. And until next time, this is the Millennial Bard signing off.